Hello fellow gypsies, welcome back to my channel. I am the girl anachronism. How's everyone doing today? Hope everyone's well. So, here's a fun craft we're gonna do today. I finally stinking fixed my hat. And of course right now it's like way too, I wouldn't say it's too hot, but it's not really so cold that I need a hat, in my personal opinion. Especially since I'm wearing a sweater. But regardless, it's been really cold the past few weeks and I've been really wanting to wear this dang thing. But I wanted to show you guys how to fix stuff. So I waited and I'm so happy. It literally, this hat is like the hat that it's like the Sisterhood of Traveling Pants but hat form, and it's just mine. I literally have lost this hat maybe 4 times since I found it, probably like once a year. It hasn't gotten lost yet. It will probably eventually because it usually gets lost when I want it the most. But for now, I have it and it's fixed and I'm so happy. It had stretched out so much on me that it was really difficult for me to wear it unless I had my hair up in a bun or a ponytail or something. It would fall off. Like right now, it would have fallen off by now if I had my hair like this. And it drove me nuts because it's literally my go-to hat. So today we're gonna learn how to fix a hat or just anything really that has stretched out so much that you still love it, you still want to wear it, and you don't want to get rid of it. So, it's just so everyone understands too, this kind of thing is kind of difficult for me filming wise. I want to show you in real time, as I said before, but the problem is, unfortunately, real time is not necessarily going to be as accurate because I do have to cut these videos. This particular video, my dad had double knee replacement surgery, which is also why this one came out a bit late. I'm sorry about that, guys. But I had to take care of my dogs. I took care of the house. So while I was filming, I actually had to stop the filming so I could go yell at my dogs.
Enough!
Or let them out or feed them or what have you. So, it is technically in real time. It's going to be done so that you can tell how much time it can potentially take you. But everyone's different. Everyone's skill level is going to be different. So don't feel discouraged and don't think that if I do it faster or even slower that I don't know what I'm doing or that you are terrible. Don't think that, because this stuff takes practice and it always takes some time, which is why a lot of times fixing your things is a pain. But this kind of particular fix, I did it through hand sewing. Granted, you can use a machine, but I wanted to give you guys sort of a beginner starter kind of thing so that if you're on a train or taking a break at work or whatever and you're bored and you brought the supplies, which it's not very many things, I want you to know that you can absolutely fix what it is you need to fix and fix it pretty well without having to worry about, wasting your free time if you don't want to, or using up all of your free time to just fix this one thing. So, and just so you're aware too, sometimes these things are like one of those situations where you will have to take it out, put it back in, take it out, put it back in. Having to fix some of the stuffs I did. Like even now, like looking at it, it doesn't look terribly pretty. I don't think it looks pretty at all. I don't really care. But, you can use the method that I have and make it look pretty at the same time. For those of you who do sew, and who are more advanced and do see my technique, just please understand, not everyone does the same thing. I'm not saying what you are doing is wrong, but what I'm doing isn't necessarily wrong either. It's literally, I'm just trying to show people who don't have the knowledge, the basic understanding, how to do this stuff so that they can apply it. And I feel that if I'm 100% perfect all the time, that's not realistic. So I just wanted to remind people of that aspect, that no, I'm not perfect. No, this doesn't look pretty to me. somewhat of an insecure artist, a lot of times I do feel the need to go to people and say, hey, what do you think? Does this look nice? Is this good? And even still, people can tell me time and again that, oh my gosh, what you've done is beautiful, but I'm an insecure artist. It's just who I am. So nothing is ever going to be perfect for me. Nothing is ever going to look beautiful 100 million percent the way I want it to, because that's just how life is. So I would prefer people didn't rag on me for my technique and instead understand that I'm just giving you another way to fix it. Because a lot of the stuff I'm applying to is going to be quick fix stuff that I learned through my mom, who is self-taught and never really learned and kind of made up her own ways, which work just as well. But also quick fixes that I learned through, needing to fix things quickly on stage and, stuff like that. So, no way, when it comes to this craft, I feel that there's no one way that is 1,000,000% the way you have to do it. I feel like everyone has their own methods, their own ways that work best for them. And I'm just one other person showing a method, a way that can work. You don't have to do it that way, but it can work. So, yeah. Now that we got that over, let's see. So the supplies we need are the thread, the needle, the scissors to cut said things, and elastic, and that's it. That's really all you need. I also recommend you get safety pins or straight pins, because it'll help hold the things in place, and it just makes it a lot easier. They're temporary stitches that people use to keep things in place, or to use it as a line. You'll learn all this later on, but for the most part, these things, it takes up more supplies, it takes up a little more time, because I actually did video something prior to this showing that method, and honestly, I don't recommend you do that. It's really, just spend the extra couple dollars for safety pins if you're not going to use straight pins. Like, for real, it's literally so much easier and takes up so much less time. And if you have safety pins, you can always do it on the go. Whereas straight pins, your pins can fall out, you can accidentally stab yourself. It can be a hot mess. So if you plan on doing this when you're gonna bring it somewhere, definitely get safety pins. If you're gonna stay at home or leave it at home, go for the straight pins. It's really up to you. I'm just giving you some information, some guidance, so that you guys can make the decision that's best for you. The type of thread that you need, that I would personally use, is going to be the thread that is thicker and won't tear as often, especially if you're like me, you're kind of rough with your things, but you also are using it often. Like, I wear this thing all the freaking time. It's my accessory for everything all year round. The elastic that I used was about half an inch. I personally wouldn't go any bigger than half an inch because I don't feel that it's necessary, but if you want to, if you feel that it's not right for you, that's okay. Don't go any bigger than an inch though, because 2 inches, 1.5 inches, that's just a little excessive. But I definitely recommend you use half an inch. When I measured my elastic, I measured it underneath my head, and I kind of went up to the top of my ears. I did that mainly because I sort of was trying to follow the same concept of a hairband or a headband that people wear, and a lot of times they kind of stop it right behind your ears, but I have issues with those falling off my head. I think I just have a really strange shaped head. That's okay, everyone's different, I know a lot of people have that issue. So, I kind of gave a little extra so that it can hug my head a bit more. But what you also want to make sure you do is you leave a couple of, like, half an inch or 1/4 of an inch so that you can fold the elastic over so it doesn't fray and come off when you do stitch it. And you'll see me do it in the video. I think we're ready to do this, guys. Are you excited? I am. I'm excited! So let's get this done, guys. Let's do this. First, we're not going to start out with the front. We're going to turn it inside out. As you can see, I'm showing you that's not exactly the center front. You want to fold it in half so you can find where the center front and center back are. Make sure everything's flat so that you can stitch it all properly so it's not wonky or, in a way that doesn't work. And as you can see, the back seam is helpful, the side seams are helpful, and following the line through the knit is how you can figure out the best spot to put everything. You want it to be a good amount from the bottom so that you have space for folding and to stitch. Once you figure out the spot you want it to go, just fold it a little and pin it on. Sometimes it seems that pinning things can be difficult. If you are righty or lefty, do whatever's comfortable for you. Doesn't matter. A lot of this is also trial and error, kind of finding the best way to go. As you can see, I'm using the lines that are already on there with the knit and the seams to help me out. And that's a very good way to sort of get an even place or placing for what you want to do. For me, I kind of figured out somewhat of the placing I wanted. And you can kind of do that by putting the hat or what have you on and seeing how much needs to be pleated or taken off to sort of get it to the spot you need. And here I'm just folding it over so that I can put the other side of the elastic on the spot that's closest without having to use a measuring tool. This is the quickest, easiest way to do this. And there I am folding it for you too. It doesn't have to be very much, just enough so that when you stitch it on, it won't fray. Now this is the point in which I've realized I've done it incorrectly. As you can see, that's the back, and that's the front. I actually pinned it on the front, so I had to take it off. And I decided to do it in quick time so that you guys don't have to sit there watching me do the same thing over again. It's essentially the same exact thing. I'm using the lines, folding it over, doing exactly what I just showed you, just the correct way. So at this point, I am putting the elastic flat on top of the skeleton because it's a patch that will not pleat. So the best way I can put the elastic on is just to keep it flush and flat against the actual fabric. This won't really affect anything since it's not really symmetrical anyway, and I kind of wear it to the side and the pleating is going to be asymmetrical. It's not going to be the normal way because I like it abnormal. Here I'm showing you actually how to pleat. Literally fold and then another fold. Oh no, check it out. So it's a fold and a fold, that simple, guys. A fold. If I could get it figured out, a fold and a fold. So you're creating what kind of looks like an accordion or an S shape, which I kind of show you. But this is kind of more of a representation of what a pleat looks like, what it should look like, how you can do it. A fold and a fold. But this isn't actually how I show. As you can see, they all have different depths potentially. You know, it makes kind of a squiggly. But it's I just wanted to show you guys how a pleat works, how you can make it. But that's not necessarily how we're gonna be pleating these things. I don't assume that everyone knows how to make a pleat, so you know. And it also is a good way to sort of figure out how big your pleats need to be, how many you want, if you just practice. You know, it is a trial and error thing when it comes to this. And this is probably the most time-consuming part of this kind of project, is sort of figuring out where you want your pleats to go, how stretchy you can make your stuff. And you don't want to make it smaller than the amount of elastic you've given yourself. You're trying to make it about even, so that when you stretch it, it'll stretch, that the pleat will stretch with the elastic, which is why you saw me kind of stretch it before. Alright, so, fun story time while we watch me pleats. So, one of the times that I had lost this hat was right after a Christmas party at work. Yes, there was drinking involved. I thought I had dropped it out of my bag inside the little restaurant that I worked in, and I couldn't for the life of me find it. I thought I had lost it or someone stole it. I didn't know what was going on, but for some reason I knew deep down in my heart it would come back to me. Fast forward to, I don't know, spring, summer maybe, and one of the guys who's the driver for our commissary kitchen, anyway, he came in and showed me the hat. He put it down on the table and said, "Is this yours?" I was so excited, but so confused, because we don't really hang out outside of work. We never really did. He's a cool guy and everything, but it was just so strange. And he told me he found it on his father's desk at work. I've never met the man's father. It's honestly the most mysterious thing in the world. I think maybe at some point that night that I lost it, I ended up in his car with my bag somehow, which happened to be his father's car, and his father found it, put it on his desk, and I stabbed myself. And, you know, magic hat. It's a magic hat. It was an amazing thing. Like, the only explanation is the one I could think of just now. But, you know, anytime I've ever lost this hat, it's always come back to me in some way, shape, or form. The last time I lost it, I dropped it on the street, on the sidewalk, where my best friend lives, and he had found it a few days after I dropped it. And I was so surprised that he would have even found it. You know, this is a very special hat for me, so that's partly why I gotta fix it. I gotta have it. It's my special skull hat. So at this point, now that I've kind of laid out my pleats the way I wanted them to be, I'm now sort of stretching the elastic a little and placing it as flat onto the hat as possible on top of the pleats. This sort of ensures that
it'll stretch properly with the pleats, with the fabric. You know, I'm kind of putting the same elements of when you stitch it on a machine, you would pull the elastic as you stitch it on, even though it's flat. And that kind of helps it scrunch up into itself and scrunch out. It gives it that stretchy ability. So that's sort of why I am stretching it like this. I'm sort of kind of giving it that same concept. But you don't really have to do that. I just feel that it would be easier for me to have it a bit tighter in that respect. So that's sort of why I'm doing it for my hat. But if you just keep it flat and you don't need to stretch it, it should work just as well. And there you have it. There it is. That's what it would look like. Now for our threads. And I just wanted to show you the difference between the all-purpose and the button thread. The thickness and everything. And for our needles, here is an embroidery needle. As you can see, it's thicker, has a bigger eye or hole at the top. And there we have a normal hand sewing needle. It's got a larger eye than some other needles, but I chose this one because I do have a thicker thread that I'm using, and it's a lot easier to thread my needle when the eye of it is not so tiny. Occasionally I drop things as well. A good trick to make sure that your thread will match is by laying it on top. It's the best way to match. And now to knot in a fun, fancy way. You pinch it with your 2 fingers and your thumb. You twist it around. You get both sides pinched, as you can see. And then kind of squeeze and twist, or roll it. Squeeze and roll. And when you pull, a lot of times it'll be a nice knot. This, unfortunately, is far too large and not helpful. But that's a fun way to quickly tie your knots. And that's what your knot would look like if you did it successfully, but we would need to do it 2 times because that's a bit too small. It would go through the fabric. That's a good size. There you go. Heck yeah. She gave us a thumbs up. Thumbs up, buttercup. Alright, so one of the things you can do with your needle, you can use it as a tool to kind of stuff the thread inside and underneath so that it's not sticking out, that little tail. And here we go again. I've come to realize that I have chosen the incorrect needle. And the reason for this is because you can't really tell, but it has a flat, sharp side, which means it's actually meant for leather. It is not meant for fabric. If I were to use it on fabric, it would actually tear or cut the fabric really badly. This is actually a very good the 25 craft needles from Dritz, I guess. They have a whole bunch of different sizes, different ones, and as you can see, that's the one I need. It's got a nice size head or eye to the needle, and it's an actual hand sewing needle. Now, just so you know, threading needles is not nearly that easy. I'm just very, very experienced. And at this point, I'm going to show you another way you can start without actually having to use a knot. And this is a method I learned you go around 3 times and then through the knot. But I learned this when I was in London, learning original practice, which essentially is the practice of crafting or creating, constructing clothing the same way that they did in the Elizabethan era, specifically for the Globe Theatre. It was like London's Globe Theatre. And you would tie a knot without actually using a knot. And this actually is a method I prefer, because when you have knots, you end up getting lumps and such inside your projects, inside your clothing and such. And you know, this leaves a nicer, cleaner line, in my opinion. And it holds just as well, if not better. So we're going to do what we call a whip stitch. And essentially you just kind of go underneath and around, underneath and around, trying not to get the needle tied up. You can always maneuver things if necessary. Here it looks like I may have caught something, but what really happened was when I had pulled the thread, it just didn't catch on the correct side. So you can easily fix that by loosening the thread or just moving it over like I am right now with the needle. It's, you know, these kinds of things, they're not really nearly as difficult as they seem if you catch them faster, sooner, easier. When you're taking your time and going slower. Granted, I'm not going very slow, but that's because I'm known for doing my hand sewing. I prefer hand sewing. I always have. It's far more relaxing to me, and I enjoy it quite a lot. And I've become a lot quicker as a result because of the fact that I've practiced so much. So, you know, I'm finishing off the way I started by going 3 times around. There's the third, and then through the knot, or through the loops, and that ties a knot. And then to finish it off even more, if you wanted to, you go through and underneath and then cut it so that the tail is already tucked in underneath and you don't have to worry about it. And there you go. That's how you tie that baby on. Now this next part I'm gonna actually use a knot, just because it's a lot easier. We're gonna be starting in the center of the elastic, and what we're gonna do is sort of make a zigzag shape. So to start off, I'm putting the needle through, and you want to make sure when you're on the outside part that you put the needle as close as you can on the spot where you had come out, if that makes sense. You want to put it next to either the knit or the stitch that's closest to where the thread came out, so it hides faster, or so it hides easier. And I'm gonna keep showing that part. And what's great too, as you can see, even though the needle's poking out, you can maneuver it to go into the elastic wherever you want it to go, wherever it needs to go. And while you're doing this, you want to make sure you get some of the pleat edges so that they're not floppy or flapping about. But you know, do it to the point where it's not tacked down so much that it doesn't look natural. It's kind of an eyeing, you gotta eye it out, and you know, just continue, repeat. go next to the knit, the spine line. Some terminology I'm not incredibly familiar with. Other terminology I've seemed to have forgotten, unfortunately. I'm gonna study up on it a lot more now that I'm gonna try and teach people more basic things, but at this juncture I'm a bit rusty, so please forgive me for my silliness. Zigzag, zigzag, zigzag. See? And this is exactly what you would do on a machine. You would use a zigzag stitch. And the reason for this is because if you were to use just a normal straight stitch, it would rip or break immediately when you tried to stretch it. Whereas a zigzag gives you a lot more freedom and stretches a lot better. And I decided to speed it up a bit just because, it's a lot of repetitive motion, a lot of repetitive things that are going on, and I believe that you all are very smart people and get it. You understand how it works and what you're supposed to do. And a lot of times while people are sewing, I know for me, especially when I'm hand sewing, like intensely hand sewing, I will sometimes flourish a bit too much, and my needle will come off the thread will come off my needle often. So I probably had to rethread my needle a bunch of times during this entire thing, so forgive me for that. But it is definitely one of those things that happens often. Now, another cool thing you could do with your needle, as you're seeing right now, you can use it to help with your pleats, make it nice and flat, and tuck that fabric in to the crevice a lot better so that it comes out flatter and prettier for you. So, the way that I found this hat, I actually literally found it. I was going for a walk, probably to Quick Check, down the road from my house. In Jersey, we got Quick Checks. And I just kind of saw something on the ground, and I picked it up. I do that a lot. I see interesting things and I pick them up, and it just happened to be this hat, which I fell in love with. I literally, out loud, went, mine? And brought it home, washed it immediately, and decided that because I was afraid someone was going to see me wear it and think and try and take it back, I decided to put beads in the eyes. And at the time I was very obsessed with the concept of day and night. So one side had as you can sort of see, one side has an orangey yellow set of beads in the eyes, and the other side has a purpley, called violet, purpley color in the eyes to represent day and night. And it's also sort of my little way of making it my own. I like to take my art projects and do something interesting, even if it's just fixing something. I'll put a little something on it just to make it more unique, or eccentric. I enjoy making things one of a kind and different. So fixing things, a lot of times I will fix them in a manner that makes them more unique or more one of a kind, so that I know no one else will have it. I've always disliked matching other people or being matchy, and I believe that probably comes from when I was a kid. My mom used to dress us up, and me and my other siblings, which I am one of 4 kids, so it's my older brother, my younger sister, and we would wear matching outfits with my mother up until well, maybe till till my younger sister was 4 or 5, and we're about 4 years apart. So, it was a long time. It was a long time I had to deal with that. And, it's not a bad thing, but for me, it's a very interesting thing that I reacted in a manner where I prefer not to match. So now that we're at the part with the skull, what you can do, instead of going all the way through, since it will show on the skull, you kind of just grab a little bit of the fabric or the knit and do exactly what you were doing before. But instead of going all the way through, you just kind of go underneath and just grab. This part, you really don't need to worry about going through into the patch, because the patch is always already so secure on the fabric that you don't need to worry about catching the front part of the fabric like earlier when you first started. You can always use a table if you don't have a thimble. Fortunately, I've misplaced my thimble and I'm very upset about it. I love that thimble. And thimbles are just helpful for hand stitching. You put it on your middle finger or what have you to help push the needle so that you don't end up stabbing yourself with the back end, which does happen occasionally. Or, so you don't hurt your finger while sewing as well. I mean, there are times where the fabric is so hard that you can take hours to do something without a thimble, when it really doesn't need to take hours. And at this point, I'm ending the sewing. The zigzag is pretty much done. There's not much more you can do with the zigzag at this point. And as you can see, I'm finishing it off the way I like to finish it off instead of doing a knot, because, faster, easier, better, faster, stronger. Voila. Snip, snip. And yeah. And since we all know how this is supposed to work, I'm just going to do this a bit faster as well. But just because I wanted to make sure you guys knew that this was going to be the entire project, start to finish, I wanted to still show you guys me finishing the project. I didn't want to do it on the side or what have you. So, here it is. A quick version of me finishing this. Finishing the jazz. Heck yeah. And there we have it. We're done. It's good. It's done. And I had actually stitched a smaller pleat before, so some of it, as you can see, me trying to flatten it out is a bit wonky, but if you had something like that, if you have issues, you can always use an iron, press it out, and it'll make it a lot nicer and look prettier.
Alright guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun learning how to fix your hats or what have you. And don't forget to subscribe down low if you like what I'm up to. And next week I think maybe we'll do something with bracelets. I don't know. Comment down below and ask me questions if you have any questions. I'd love to hear any of your feedback, if there's anything that you would like to see me do. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. My links are below. And I can't wait to see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day, my gypsies, and don't hurt yourselves. See you next time.
I stick my tongue out at you. Ugh.